Okay, today's lesson is a continuation of what we did before with factoring. We're going to use the box method to factor a difference of squares when the b value is 0. So the first step is to multiply a by c. Notice on this quadratic equation, a equals 1, that's the coefficient of x squared. B equals 0, that's the coefficient of x. And c equals negative 16. The sign in front of the number goes with the number. So we're going to, for step 1, multiply a times c. A is 1, c is negative 16, and together those multiply to equal negative 16. We're going to make a t-table of factors for the product. So negative 16 you get by multiplying 1 plus or minus 1 times plus or minus 16 plus or minus 2 times plus or minus 8. 3 doesn't go into 16. And plus or minus 4 times plus or minus 4. So we're going to draw our box and put 4 squares, and we're going to put the first term in the first box. So x squared is our first term. That goes in the first box. The last term goes in the last box. So the negative 16 goes at the end. And then since the product is negative, we're going to find the factors with opposite signs that add up to make b. Remember that b is 0. So that means we need the same number for both factors. So like positive 4 and negative 4 would add up to make b. And we're going to make those be the coefficients of x. So it's going to be positive 4 and negative 4 that add up to equal 0, which is our b value. And so we are going to write them down in our little box here as coefficients of x. So the x squared is still here. This negative 16 is in this last box. And we're going to say positive 4x and negative 4x. Fill out the remaining boxes. So whenever the b value is 0, we want the same number for factors but opposite signs. So we're going to factor out the greatest common factor from each row and column. So we've got x squared here, 4x here, negative 4x, and negative 16. We're going to only factor out negatives if they are on the higher degree term only. Remember, higher degree means the higher power of x. So for example, coming across the top row, we have an x squared and we have an x. So the higher degree term is the x squared. So across the top, we have x squared, 4x. The greatest common factor that goes into both of those is x. Across the bottom, we have negative 4x and negative 16. The greatest common factor that goes into both of those is negative 4. Coming down the first set of boxes vertically, x squared and negative 4x. The greatest common factor here is x, and we do positive, not negative, because the higher degree power of x is the x squared, and it's positive. And then we have 4x and negative 16, so the greatest common factor here is 4, and the higher power of x is the top one here. 4x is a higher degree of x than x to the 0 with the 16, so it should be a positive, positive 4. And then we use our terms on the side and the bottom of the box to write our factors. So it's going to be x plus 4 times x minus 4, because we got x plus 4 here, x minus 4 here, and that's still equal to 0. This is going to be like your first answer to the problem, writing it in factored form. Then you're going to set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. So x plus 4 equals 0 and x minus 4 equals 0. And then you can subtract 4 on both sides, so x equals negative 4. Add 4 on both sides, so x equals positive 4. And this is the other answer, is the values of x, where this graph is going to cross the x-axis. So you can check it in your calculator. If you hit y equals, type in the original function that we had at the beginning, x squared minus 16. So y equals x squared minus 16. Hit graph, and look, it crosses the x-axis at +4 and at -4. You see that? +4, -4. Those are the places where this parabola crosses the x-axis. Okay, so that's a good way to check your work. Now, on the back, we've got some more to practice with. So we're going to start with step 1, multiply a times c. The a is 4, the c is -81. 4 times -81 is -324. And we make a t-chart of factors, but guess what? There are so many factors of 324. I don't even want to list them all out. And I know that my b value is going to be 0, so I know I need the same number on both sides to make that happen. So instead of writing out all the factors, I'm going to save myself some time. I'm going to go in my calculator and go second and hit the x squared button to pull up the square root. That's located catty corner from the 7. And I'm going to type 324 in there and press enter. Look what it gives me. 18. So 18 times 18 is equal to 324. So those are the factors I'm going to want to use. I don't need all of them. I need the ones that are the same. So plus or minus 18 times plus or minus 18 gives me 324. Okay? And we want them to be opposite signs, one positive, one negative, because the product is negative. Okay? The same number but opposite signs. So I'm going to draw the square, split it into 4 parts. First term goes in the first square. -81, the last term, goes in the last square. I'm going to put a positive 18x here and a negative 18x here. And I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor from each row and column. So going sideways, the greatest common factor between 4x squared and 18x is going to be 2x. Coming across the bottom, the greatest common factor between -18x and -81 is going to be -9. Vertically here, the greatest common factor between 4x squared and -18x is positive 2x, positive because the greater degree power of x is positive. And then vertically here, 18x and -81, the greatest common factor is positive 9. So this gives me, for part A, factor using the box method, the factors 2x plus 9 times 2x minus 9, and that still equals 0. So that's the first answer to the problem. Then I set each factor equal to 0. 2x plus 9 equals 0, minus 9 on both sides. 2x equals -9, divide by 2 on both sides. X equals -4.5, that's one solution. And then 2x minus 9 equals 0, add 9 to both sides. 2x equals 9, divide by 2 on both sides. X equals 4.5. So there's the solutions to the problem. Now, there is a shortcut that you can use on these problems to help you if you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the shortcut as well, because you might be noticing a little pattern going on with our answers. 4x squared, if you were to take the square root of that, it's 2x times 2x. So if I set up a double set of parentheses, I'm going to write 2x in the front and 2x in the back. Then 81 is also a perfect square number. 81 is 9 times 9. So if I put a 9 here and a 9 here, one positive and one negative, that is a quick way to factor this without using the box method. Okay, so I just wanted to show you a little shortcut. Square root of the first term in the beginning of both, square root of the last term at the end of both, one positive, one negative, and you'll have it. Okay, so let's try the box method again on this one. We're going to multiply A, which is 1, times C, which is negative 49. So that gives me a product of negative 49. 49 doesn't have as many factors, but really if I want the B number to be 0, I need the same factor times itself. So that's 7 times 7 to give me 49. Plus or minus 7 times plus or minus 7. And the reason I selected those factors is because if I have one of them positive and one of them negative, that will add up to my B number of 0. I'm going to draw my square. First box gets that first term, x squared. Last box gets the negative 49. And then I'm going to fill in a positive 7x and a negative 7x. And I'm going to factor the greatest common factor sideways, which is x. Between negative 7x and negative 49, it would be negative 7. Vertically, I have x squared and negative x, so that's just going to be x. And over here, 7x and negative 49, that's going to be positive 7. So notice my factors are x plus 7 times x minus 7. And if I set, that's going to be my first answer, equals 0. Set both factors equal to 0. And get the x by itself, minus 7, x equals negative 7, plus 7, x equals 7. So there's the other answers. X equals negative 7 and x equals positive 7. Okay? Now, let's look at this next one. Our A is 16 and our C is negative 25. So I'm going to multiply 16 times negative 25. This is a big number. This is negative 400. So negative 400 goes here. I really don't want to write down all the factors of negative 400. So I'm going to say, what's the square root of 400? Which means what number times itself gives you 400? It's 20. So plus or minus 20 times plus or minus 20. Notice I don't want to put the square root of negative 400 under here because the calculator will give you an error. It says non-real answer. And the reason that it does that is because you can never multiply a number by itself and get a negative. If I do positive 20 times positive 20, that's 400. Negative 20 times negative 20 is also positive 400. So you never get a negative answer when you multiply a number by itself. So when we create our square, because the product is negative, we want a positive and a negative factor. Negative 20x and positive 20x. 16x squared goes here, and negative 25 goes here. So I'm going to factor the greatest common factor sideways. That's going to be positive 4x. Then along the bottom row, I have a factor of positive 5. Coming down here vertically, I have a factor of positive 4x. And vertically here, negative 5. So I have 4x plus 5 times 4x minus 5. And I set both of these factors equal to 0 and solve for x. This is one of my answers right here. Then minus 5, 4x equals 5, negative 5. Divide by 4 on both sides, x equals negative 5/4. You can leave that as an improper fraction, or if you want to divide it with a calculator, you can do that. Negative 5/4 is negative 1.25. So it doesn't matter to me whether you leave it as a fraction or a decimal. Add 5 to both sides. 4x equals 5. Divide by 4 on both sides. X equals positive 5/4. Now, we've done 3 all the way out using the box method, and that is the way the directions say to do this on the paper. But I would like to just show you 3 more that we could do with the shortcut. And if you prefer the shortcut, you're welcome to use it. The method is not so important as that you know how to get the factors. So let's see how we could do this one using the shortcut. I'm going to start with double sets of parentheses. What is the square root of 81? What number multiplied times itself gives you 81? That would be 9 times 9. And so the square root of 81x squared is going to be 9x times 9x. The square root of 4 is 2 because 2 times 2 is 4. So I'm going to put 2 here and 2 here. One with a plus, one with a minus. And now I've already got my factors. So I'm going to go 9x plus 2 equals 0, 9x minus 2 equals 0. Subtract 2 on both sides. 9x equals negative 2. Divide by 9 on both sides. X equals negative 2/9. This one's probably better left as a fraction than as a decimal because it's a repeating decimal. I'm going to add 2 to both sides on this equation. 9x equals 2. Divide by 9 on both sides. X equals 2/9. And if you want to check it, you can go in your calculator into y equals, type in your equation you started with, 81x squared minus 4. Hit graph. Look how very narrow this parabola is. Do you think it seems reasonable that the little fraction of 2/9 is where it crosses the x-axis? That's very close to 0. I think that looks like it's probably right. So it's a good eyeball check to see if you're on the right track. Now let's try the shortcut on this one. These numbers are rather large, so I might use the calculator to take the square root if I don't know it in my head. What is the square root of 225? That would be 15. So I'm going to go 15x times 15x. That's what gives me 225x squared. Now I'm going to go square root of 144. That's 12. So I'm going to put 12 here and 12 here. 1 plus, 1 minus. And now I can set my factors equal to 0. 15x plus 12 equals 0, and 15x minus 12 equals 0. So I'm going to subtract 12 on both sides. 15x equals negative 12. Divide by 15 on both sides. X equals negative 12 divided by 15, which is negative 0.8. Add 12 to both sides. 15x equals 12. Divide by 15 on both sides. X equals 12 divided by 15, which is positive 0.8. And there's your solutions, okay? Now number 6 is a little different because all the others had a minus in the middle, and this one has a plus in the middle. But do you see that the x squared comes at the end? We can actually reverse these terms as long as we keep the signs that are in front of them in front of them. So I'm going to change this to be positive x squared minus 100 equals 0. And this is going to allow me to set up my parentheses for my factors, x and x. X times x gives me x squared. And do you know what number times itself gives you 100? How about 10? 10 times 10 is 100. One with a plus, one with a minus. So we're going to go x plus 10 equals 0, x minus 10 equals 0. Subtract 10 on both sides, x equals negative 10. Add 10 on both sides, x equals 10. Those are the solutions, and there's the factored version up there. All right, now here's some star problems that were on the STAR test. It says, which expression is a factor of 36x squared minus 49. So on this one, we don't actually have to go all the way to the end where we say x equals this and x equals that. We just need to factor it and then look to see which one of these actually is a factor. So if you use the shortcut here, what's the square root of 36x squared? 6 times 6 is 36, so it's 6x times 6x to give you 36x squared. What number times itself gives you 49? How about 7? 7 times 7 is 49. We want one with a plus, one with a minus. Do you see either of these two factors in the answer choices? I think it might be this one right here, D, 6x minus 7, okay? Now, 8 says, which expression is equivalent to 9n squared minus 25? Notice the word equivalent. That's a fancy math word that just means equal. So we just do the same thing we've been doing. We're going to factor it. It's a difference of squares. We're going to set up two sets of parentheses. What's the square root of 9n squared? How about 3n times 3n gives you 9n squared? What's the square root of 25? 5 times 5 gives you 25. 1 plus, 1 minus. Do you see this in any of the answer choices? I think B is the correct one. All right. Good luck with your factoring differences of squares on your assignment. Have a great day. Bye for now.